A few weeks ago, we looked at the 16 personalities as villains. Basically, we were identifying types of supervillains in movies and books, etc. that represented each personality type. But today, we're looking at something much closer to home.
The dark side
of each of the 16 personalities. Not some cartoonish villain, but sides of each personality that you're gonna come into contact with in your everyday life. We're gonna be looking at what happens when each of the 16 personalities has gotten so far off track that they start causing big problems for themselves and everyone around them. What does your type look like on the dark side? Let's take a look. One of the ESTP's greatest strengths, being able to live in the moment, can lead to some dark traits if they aren't careful. Specifically, they can become reckless. You see, the impulsiveness of the ESTP is usually tempered by their thinking, meaning that they're generally pretty good at deciding if a decision is logical in real time. When this becomes corrupted though, when they go
to the dark side,
they can find themselves acting impulsively against whatever it is they don't like, typically in a very physical way, like breaking it. Now, according to some statistics, ESTPs are one of the types most overrepresented in prison, and part of this is because their dark side can be a little more aggressive than some of the other types, leading them to get into trouble with others or the law. The ESFP dark side is the epitome of the road to HE double toothpicks is paved with good intentions. Many ESFPs want to do well and live authentic and free lives, but they don't always stop to think about the consequences of their actions.
Consequences.
And when you take this to the dark side, it's like they really don't think about the consequences. It's like, dude, you really should have seen that. You should have seen how massively negative the consequences would be for yourself and everyone around you when you took that action. You're just like the young hero in a movie who sets out on an adventure to save his town, but ultimately just makes things worse because he didn't prepare for the journey and someone gets hurt trying to save him from the mess he made. But then the real dark side comes out when they have to deal with the consequences of those actions that they didn't think through. They can get angry, make excuses, and blame others for their own mistakes. The dark side of the ISTJ takes their preferences for perfection and details to the next level by becoming a control freak. Getting an ISTJ to change their plans or go against their schedule can become impossible when they are leaning
towards the dark side.
Like, ever dealt with bureaucracy before, like renewing your driver's license, for example? You have to wait in line so you can get a number, so you can wait in line again, so you can make a request for something, and then you get to the front of the line and they're like, I'm sorry, you don't have all the required paperwork. And I'm like, yeah, but on the internet, on the website, it says this is what I need. And they're like, oh, sorry, the website's out of date. You're gonna have to come back tomorrow and do this all over again. That is what it is like dealing with an ISTJ
on the dark side.
It's like they're doing it on purpose, just to screw with you. They do things so rigidly by the book that the book becomes a blunt force weapon that they're just smacking you in the face with. Now, the ISFJ dark side is them, that word is hard to say, catastrophizing about potential problems and spending way too much energy trying to prepare for them and shaming you for not seeing things their way. Because they're such a detail-focused type, they may latch onto one piece of negative information and then go into a negative thought spiral about how they need to protect themselves from whatever thing is in question and make sure everyone around them feels the same way. Like, for example, let's say an ISFJ hears somewhere that caffeine is addictive and destructive to your health. So the ISFJ narrowly consumes a lot of information about the negative effects of caffeine. They throw away all their coffee beans and then they make all their friends feel like they're drug addicts because they're drinking a latte. This can become a big problem for those around the ISFJ, if you couldn't tell, as it's extremely difficult to convince an ISFJ to change their mind about something that they've really dug their heels in on. They'll be like, guys, I've read all about it. I know way more than you on this subject. Come back when you've read a few books, okay? In fact, if you present the ISFJ with any point of information contradicting their belief, they might try to make you feel like you're irresponsible and you're uninformed, and at their worst, they might cut you and others out of their life over something trivial, like a latte. There isn't anything more verbally straightforward than an ESTJ
on the dark side.
If you're doing something wrong, you aren't following the plan or protocol, or you're just not meeting their expectations, then they will let you know in a very public and humiliating manner. Like, have you ever had a boss where you make a small mistake and they blow it out of proportion and make it seem like you've done the stupidest thing ever and like people's lives are in danger now because you didn't like answer an email fast enough? Healthier ESTJs are direct about mistakes and problems, but but they use a little bit of tact. But the ESTJs on the dark side, they throw any form of politeness out of the window and unleash their fury upon you for the slightest wrongdoing. It's like walking through a minefield, or it's like it's the invisible fence for a dog, and it's like you're walking along and you just get shocked, and it's like, what did I do? The ENTJ's dark side turns their natural organizational skills and even their leadership abilities towards selfish goals. They envision a goal they want to reach, and then they get into a mindset where all the people under them and around them are just mere resources to help them get there. For the ENTJ on the dark side, anyone who works for them or supports them or could even potentially provide some sort of benefit to them is merely a pawn in the ENTJ's game. Even scarier, anything or anyone that gets in their way is seen as an obstacle that must be overcome, or in some circumstances, taken out. And I don't mean on a date. I mean like taken out. No, I don't mean like Chinese food. I mean like taken out. Okay, you get what I mean now. Healthy ESFJs spend a lot of energy maintaining a positive social atmosphere. ESFJs have a unique dark side though. You're either a friend or you're an enemy. They shut off their social care for people outside of whatever circle they have decided is important to them. Not only that, but they will also have high expectations for others to fulfill their role in the friend group, and if you don't, well then, they might just use their social sway to turn everyone against you. To the ESFJs on the dark side, you are either with us or against us, and there can't be middle ground. In fact, if you try to take a middle ground in a conflict involving an ESFJ on the dark side, even if you're just trying to like mediate and find a win-win solution, there's a good chance that the ESFJ will see you as being part of the problem and try to turn everyone against you. Likewise, ENFJs like to ensure that their social spheres are well maintained. Their dark side can come out when that burden becomes too much to handle, or if there is some unfixable problem, like two friends arguing to a point where they won't talk. The ENFJ in the dark side, whatever. The ENFJ on the dark side will have zero tolerance for people acting in ways that don't support the larger group, and they can lash out against anyone who is causing conflict. The calm and guiding ENFJ can suddenly become aggressive or even manipulative to put an end to what they see as the problem. While the ENFJ isn't as likely as the ESFJ to like exile someone from their social circle, they are more likely to publicly shame those who they see as troublemakers, to a point where those individuals might just decide to peace out on their own. Even in the best of times, ISTPs have a constant conflict between what they want to do and the way they want to do it and other people's emotions. ISTPs are super logical and practical, so ask any ISTP and they'll tell you, man, I'm just doing my thing, I'm not trying to cause problems, but people just get their feelings hurt so easily. Like, sorry, I really need to get a project done for school, so I can't make it to Aunt Hilda's funeral. I mean, what's the big deal? It's not like she's gonna know. But an ISTP on the dark side takes it a step further, and they start looking at the hypothetical Venn diagram to intentionally find the overlap of stuff that will upset other people and how I want to do things, and then they'll do all those things in the middle. Shout out to Venn diagram. Like, oh, my next door neighbor is hosting his daughter's wedding in his backyard. This seems like the perfect time for me to get out all my loudest tools and totally re-landscape my yard. Hey, it's not my fault if it makes a lot of noise and ruins the wedding. What am I supposed to do? Not cut my own grass? The INTP's dark side is what happens when they feel smarter than everyone around them. Now, I know, INTPs are watching like, but Frank, I am smarter than everyone around me. But the dark side takes it, as I'm saying with many of these, to a whole nother level. On the dark side, this can lead an INTP to become bitter because they feel like no one is smart enough to appreciate their genius. This dark side will isolate the INTP from others as they spend a ton of time soaking up new information about their favorite topics or working on their pet projects, while continuing to stray further and further, or is it farther and farther, away from normal human contact. As this goes on, it becomes harder and harder for the INTP to get back into normal social situations or to even explain their genius level ideas to others. And that can really compound the problem with a lot of frustration, until the point where they just give up on people as a whole and decide that they don't need or want to deal with anyone else. This will become apparent to those around them because the INTP's attitude and outlook on life will take a noticeable turn for the worse, to a point where they will lash out at anything or anyone they think is beneath their lofty intellect. ISFPs are incredibly dedicated to the things that matter to them, and that can be the very thing that comes out
in their dark side.
I mean, what happens when you take this matters to me up to 11? You get obsession, complete dedication towards something. Now, this isn't always bad, and there's a fine line here. Like, for example, if an ISFP YouTuber really cared about making amazing content, their complete obsession is the thing that's going to separate them from everyone else and propel them towards success, usually. The tipping point is when the ISFP gets so obsessed over something that could be good, like that YouTube channel, for example, but they take it so far that literally nothing else matters to them. Like maybe they spend all their money buying new cameras and equipment even though they can barely afford rent, or they stop doing any chores around the house, or they cut loved ones out of their life who try to suggest gently that the ISFP maybe wash the dishes and also get a real job to pay the bills. Speaking of which, this dark side tends to be most noticeable to people who live with the ISFP, because those are the people who have to share the burdens of the ISFP's neglected responsibilities, like when they can't pay their rent, for example. It isn't exactly fun to have that person around who could easily be helping more, but just chooses not to. INFP's dark side is probably one of the darker ones, as they sink very deeply into a dark pit of negative emotions. So deep that it is really difficult for anyone to get them out. INFPs have amazing imaginations and tend to be very creative. So for them, it's like having the engine of a souped up Ferrari for their mental processing. Very potent, fast, 800 horsepower, whatever that means, but it's also difficult to control, and when it's dark out, you could drive off a cliff if you're not careful. INFPs on the dark side get laser focused on only their darker negative experiences, and when their amazing creative 800 horsepower imagination gets a drop of that dark fuel, it spirals out of control pretty fast. INFPs can get into this selfish and fatalistic mindset where every tiny thing that goes wrong, or even just things that are kind of neutral, get woven into their fantasy story about how their life
Is absolute crap.
This is amplified in that INFPs, being feelers as well as perceivers, aren't the most action-oriented type. So when they get into these dark spirals, it's really easy for them to just sit in them for long periods of time. It's like having a black hole of negative energy in the room. It's just great. You won't be able to express your good times or accomplishments without the INFP's dark side dragging it down into the bad mood that they are in. The ENFP's dark side wants to push the envelope until it is pushed into a place that is really dark. Their love for new experiences and their hatred of being limited and controlled can often make them kind of off the wall, even when they're healthy. When they're on the dark side, though, they just take it way too far, and it becomes fueled by a disdain for others. ENFPs on the dark side will push boundaries with people and systems and society itself to test the limits of what they can get away with, and to prove that they are above the rules. They might also make big life decisions erratically, like quitting a job 3 days after they started the job because it feels like they're too good for that job. This is hard for people around the ENFP because in their rule-breaking and wildly shifting paths, there is often collateral damage. People who suffer the consequences of the ENFP's chaos. At the very least, when the ENFP on the dark side ends up in a bit of a pickle due to their actions, they will reach out to anyone in their circle to help bail them out, and they'll probably never pay you back or return the favor. Curiosity killed the cat, and ENTPs take curiosity to the next level. Few things are more exciting to ENTPs than the whys and hows of something they don't understand. And this can be a big problem when they don't have the patience to find the answers to those whys and hows and start to resort to more questionable methods. Sure, it might be interesting to see how two unknown chemicals mix together, like you're, at the alchemy table in Skyrim. Frank, we're not gamers. But it could also be dangerous to the ENTP or those around them, especially an ENTP fully
On the dark side.
at that point, they're just not innocently experimenting, but they have a hypothesis of how they think the experiment will turn out, and it's probably a destructive one, and they're gonna do it anyway. If you look at the mixing of chemicals as an analogy, a typical ENTP might bring up a controversial political topic. I wish I could speak. Controversial political topic at Christmas dinner just for the fun of watching everyone argue, like mixing some chemicals together. An ENTP on the dark side, though, at that same dinner might bring up a very personal topic that they suspect could create not just an argument, but rifts in the family that could last for years. The INTJ dark side is probably one of the easier ones to imagine. I mean, when you think of INTJs just in general, not even on the dark side, you probably already imagine someone dressed up in a black cloak scheming to take over the world with some the same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world. And yeah, that is the dark side of the INTJ too. Their superpower of seeing 8, 9, 10 steps down the road and planning for it becomes a tool for negativity, perhaps even for
darkness.
Now, at their healthiest, INTJs are visionaries who can lead people to build a better future. That's why they're called the architect, baby. But when they are on the dark side, the future they are working to build is one that only benefits them, even if it means that other people's futures will be much worse off. The INTJ will do anything they can, working tirelessly to create such a well-oiled system, propelling them forward, that anyone else who gets in the way will be steamrolled. Nothing personal. An INTJ on the dark side, for example, is like the kind of entrepreneur who builds a business as quickly and efficiently as he can so that in 5 years he can sell it for $100 million. Even if it means taking advantage of the workers or tricking customers into buying something they don't really need or want. It can be difficult to communicate with an INTJ in this mindset because as they get worse and worse, their patience and empathy for those who would slow their progress becomes non-existent. So if the INTJ's dark side is manipulating events and systems, then the INFJ's dark side is manipulating people and their psychology. INFJs are natural students of human emotion. What makes other people tick? What are the mechanisms at work behind people's decisions? INFJs understand faster than any other type that everyone, even the most logical INTP, at their core is ruled by irrational feelings that might not even be clear to the person feeling them. And after a while, when an INFJ becomes confident in that understanding, they put it into action by subtly influencing those around them. Which sounds nefarious perhaps, but it's not all bad. In fact, a lot of it is good. This ability can help and heal people. Like a healthy INFJ might see someone who just needs a little push in the right direction, but wouldn't take the advice if they just came out and gave it to them. The INFJ has got to just influence them without them realizing it so that they think it was their idea. But it's ultimately a positive thing. An INFJ on the dark side, though, will use those tactics of suggestion and influence to manipulate people into doing things that are ultimately detrimental. It might be to benefit the INFJ, perhaps manipulating their boss into firing a coworker that the INFJ doesn't like. Or at their absolute worst, it could be manipulating a person for no real reason at all other than for the INFJ's amusement. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay cool and attractive.
They say strangers come to town.